This object form of describing the location or the destination of a link can also be useful for other things, not just for using names and setting up a link in a more convenient way instead of building a long string, but also to maybe add extra information which you might need. Let's say you want to use a query parameter. In case you're not sure what that is, a query parameter is that thing you see in some routes, in some URLs after the question mark, like sort equals ascending. A query parameter is basically an optional route parameter which is not needed to find and load a component, but which may be used to then pass extra information into that component. It's not a must use, but it can be useful in some apps and some pages. Now, you could add such a query parameter if you build your link manually by simply adding it to your string which you're building, like this. But if you use this object form, it's even more convenient. You can add a query property next to name and params to this config object, and query then takes a nested object just as params did. And here you can add any query parameters you might want to pass to the to-be-loaded page, like sort with a value of ASC, a string saying ASC. I'll reformat that to make it a bit easier to read. And you can add any query parameters you want, and of course your page, your component supports. These query parameters are not defined in the route config. You don't need to add anything here because they're optional by nature. But now if I save that and we reload, if I click view members, you see that query parameter is added to the URL automatically. Now we're not doing anything with that parameter here, but we are adding it. And if you would want to use it in the component that is loaded through that query parameter, so in this case team members, you can extract it. There you get access to your query parameters, if I console log it, through this route.query. The query property holds information about your query parameters. So if I save that and reload and open the console, we see we get an object here which has this sort key and a value of ascending. So that is how you get access to the query parameters you might be passing to a component through routing. As a side note, query parameters are not provided as props. If I log this.sort here, hoping that we get a sort prop, since we have a sort query parameter, you will see that the value I get here is actually undefined. It's undefined because query parameters are just accessible through $route. This shouldn't be a problem though, because query parameters are optional anyways. So if you ever use your component in a different way, so not by routing but by embedding it in another component's template, you might simply not have access to that query parameter, but since it is optional anyways, and it might not be added to the URL as well, your code should be prepared to handle the non-existence of this query parameter anyways. But that's it for query parameters here. I wanted to bring it up because it is important to be able to work with those as well. It is important to know that View Router makes adding and extracting them easy. We don't need them for this dummy application, but you might need them for other applications, of course.